Hey there, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Hope everybody's doing well in these trying times in the United Corporations of America. Hope everyone had a nice Father's Day. If you have a child, animals do count. I had a lovely day. Had some whiskey last night. My daughter almost ate chalk, which was not so good, but she's okay. I think my wife was more affected than my daughter. Lot going on, and I got to tell you, I'm starting to shift my belief. I don't think the media is lazy. I think the media is corrupt. I have broken 2 or 3 major stories within a week on Flint, on East Palestine. I'll have another one tomorrow. Stay tuned. Developments in the Kalamazoo, Michigan story that we covered and got sick covering last year, of the multi-billion-dollar paper mill that is poisoning a poor Black community, that, corporate media loved. Gretchen Whitmer, it helped expand. Yeah, we'll have an update on graphic packaging tomorrow. Hint, hint. And the media just doesn't give a shit. They don't care about the systematic environmental genocide. Yes, genocide going on in the United Corporations of America. But we are going to discuss more acute genocide happening today. And we want to have on, and are delighted to have on again, Jen Perelman, who is running a repeat campaign against Debbie Wasserman Schultz down in southern Florida. Obviously, this was 8 years ago, so it's a little less fresh. But once upon a time, DWS was on that, figurative bullseye right next to Hillary Clinton as the most hated corporate shill in America among the progressive left. I think she's still up there. And you are running against her now in a more traditional campaign because you ran in 2020, which was really hamstrung by COVID. You couldn't really campaign at all. Still did decent. And now you're running against her. The district has changed. The boundaries have changed. Shall we say maybe less old and Jewish, even though I love our old Jewish brethren.
Yes.
More, decent amount more young people, more
Latino, very heavily Latino.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a card-carrying AIPAC member and part of the Israel Can Do No Wrong club, and part of the club that calls you anti-Semitic if you dare criticize Israel. So first, I want to start. We're going to play your ad, but I want to wait for more people to trickle in. You have I thought, a really powerful ad talking about why, as a Jewish woman, you won't take money from AIPAC. But I just look at this. We've had protests now for 7-8 months. We have led the charge. By the way, smash that like button, share this live stream. John covered another protest over the weekend. We have covered now nearly 60 protests. We have led any outlet in America covering these protests. John has been up and down the streets of New York, D.C., rain, hot, heat, noon, 3 a.m. This guy has been out there, and we are dedicated to covering this. And, in many ways, Jen, it becomes kind of repetitive. But if we don't cover it, people lose sight that there's still active protests going on. But I wanted to ask you, what's been your reception down there? Because you have ran, I wouldn't say it's your top issue, but one of your top issues has been opposition to Israel's genocide, which the majority of Americans, polling-wise, seem to agree with you.
It's very interesting here locally because I feel like those two groups of people, whether it's the secular Jews that may be on the fence about Debbie that could be potential voters, how much this issue about Israel and me being an anti-Zionist, how much that affects that. Yes, that is something that we consider. But like you said, the demographics have changed significantly. And for the most part, the places where I am spending my most time are in communities that are not that particular community demographically. So the people that I'm around are much more, I would say, like-minded with the majority of people in that they are opposed to what is going on. As in the majority of the real rabid Zionists in my district are Republicans. And again, this isn't a judgment, it's just a demographic observation. And so as a result, they are not voting in our primary. And so I don't deal a lot with a lot of the very Zionist people, even canvassing or at events, because they are not even in our target audience. So, and again, our district right now is 46% Latino. So, for whatever that's worth. And so things have changed a lot here. And I spend more time in vulnerable communities than affluent white Jewish ones.
And, something that really strikes me is obviously, listen, I don't subscribe to the whole we're spending our tax dollars there rather than here.
Right.
We have all the money in the world, modern monetary theory. However, people are starting to wonder, including people that aren't anti-Israel per se, but are tired of high grocery prices, are tired of, the inflation that's still stubborn, despite them saying it's getting better. How it is we could just kind of snap our fingers and send, hundreds of billions of dollars, not really to defense. I mean, this is not they keep saying this is a war. A war is fought between two armies, generally on a battlefield somewhere. This, the Palestinians do not have a way to defend themselves. But I am hearing from more people, I'm curious about you, that are frustrated with their wallets are thinning ever so rapidly. But it seems our focus is on sending money everywhere else.
Well, this has been the case forever. We've been defunding our social programs in this country and crying austerity and for years and years, while continuing to send more and more money to American empire overseas, and in doing things that the majority of people in this country are against consistently. This has been going on for years. This is nothing new. I actually appreciate that more and more people are seeing it right now. That's what it feels like to me. It's almost like we're at today I was speaking with Mark Steiner on the Real News, and he calls it the precipice. And maybe that is we're sort of at this point where everybody is more able to see it than has seen it before. But the interference in the covering of this has all been going on for years and years and years. This corporatism, this complete takeover. And it's an uphill battle. For sure, this is an uphill battle. But I feel inspired by the amount of people that are now seeing it that weren't even talking about this even 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And I want to read this from the New York Times. Supporters of Israel. This is about Jamal Bowman's race. Which, is apparently somehow New York City is Israel's north or east, west, excuse me. And this has become the top issue in this race because AIPAC is making it that. But supporters of Israel have since provided George Latimer with a huge financial advantage. AIPAC has been his top campaign bundler, helping him amass $2.5 million in cash for the race's final sprint, compared with Bowman's $1 million. Spending by AIPAC, United Democracy Project, has dwarfed those figures and could make the race most expensive House primary in history. Another group, Democratic Majority for Israel, has spent $1 million against Bowman. And Fair Shake, a cryptocurrency-focused super PAC, plans to spend $2 million. That Democratic Majority from Israel flooded money against Nina Turner, Bernie. I want to ask you, obviously, you're not, fortunately, on the receiving end of this onslaught from AIPAC, but if you get elected, you pretty quickly will be. You pretty quickly will be. What are your thoughts on these other races? I mean, Jamal Bowman, I'm not entirely enthused with everything he's done. I think he'd be better than, the shill running against him. But it sure seems to me that a lot of these races where Israel does not affect people's lives whatsoever in this district, other than Zionists and, going to Shabbat, that's all you're seeing on TV ads. And you're basically seeing Jamal Bowman being painted almost as like a Hamas supporter.
Right. Yeah, no, this is definitely problematic. And I remember seeing it with Nina twice, fairly back to back, that this is a common theme that we see running. But at the end of the day, they could keep getting more and more money. They reach the point of diminishing marginal returns on how much money they have. And what really matters is these candidates' ground games. And I can't speak as to Jamal Bowman's ground game. I don't know what that really looks like. All the money in the world. So what it really, for any campaign, whether it's a challenger or an incumbent or whatever it is, you need the amount of money that you need to reach the voters that you need to vote for you in that race. It's math. Now, all the money in the world for the other person makes them get more name recognition for sure, but you still have your people you have to reach. And let's not forget that Jamal Bowman is the incumbent. So the name recognition is definitely in his favor as well. So I think, look, obviously I am rooting for Jamal, obviously. And I root against anything that is as insidious as AIPAC. This is unacceptable that we're even watching this and commenting on the fact that we're watching in live time that this organization that is for foreign interests is interfering in our elections. And yet we have people that are still claiming that Russia is the problem.
Right. By the way, we recently learned Israel has a whole network of bots, those scary Russian bots that stole the election from Hillary.
Sure.
Israel has a whole network of bots that, Rachel Maddow forgot to do a whole segment crying about the threat to democracy. If it was Russian bots, she would. I want to show people, you just did an ad specifically about, your being Jewish, why you will not take a cent from AIPAC. I thought it was pretty powerful. Let's take a look at that.
This is me at 16 years old in Israel on a high school trip holding an assault rifle, and this is the definition of indoctrination. I grew up in North Miami Beach. I grew up in a very insulated, very Jewish community. We were taught that Palestine and Palestinians, that's not a real thing, that was made up by Arabs. Everybody over there that wasn't Jewish was just Arabs. But the message was always clear that Jews were not safe and that the Arabs wanted to hurt us. My relatives, my great-grandmother, my grandmother were raised with this fear mentality that without the state of Israel, Jews around the world will not be safe. True history was kept from us. We were propagandized. But as I grew older, I began to see a different reality unfolding. I witnessed the rise of the Israeli lobby, exerting its influence on our politics and policies. I learned about the injustices happening thousands of miles away in the name of Jewish people. And I can't stay silent in the face of such injustice. The right to return denied to so many Palestinians. The war fueled by the Israeli government and sanctioned by our own country, condemned by the UN and the International Court of Justice as genocide. We cannot turn a blind eye to this injustice any longer. To me, atonement is really taking accountability for your participation in something that you now realize was not correct in some way and wronged people in some way. I participated in an ethnic cleansing state. I do not feel powerless. I feel hopeful. It is time for us to use our voices, to stand in solidarity with the oppressed, to demand accountability from our leaders. As a candidate, as a mother, as an ally, I pledge to fight for justice and equity for everyone, here at home and abroad. For there can be no peace without true justice. I'm Jen Perelman. I'm running for Congress, Florida's 25th district.
It's a great ad.
Yeah. Kudos to Pat McGee and his team. They were amazing. And these are people. This is a gentleman who did this that does documentary work, not not somebody who does campaign ads normally. So yeah, it was really And there's a few more like it that are coming from that same crew. But yeah,
I'm curious. You pointed out, indoctrination, whatnot. Obviously, there's a lot of young Jewish people who go on this birthright trip, which I went on. I didn't know that Sheldon Adelson funded it. I didn't even know who Sheldon Adelson was. I just went because it was free and, try to, drink booze and, maybe have some excitement. But
Yep.
it dawns on me, there's a lot of people, I think, particularly Jewish people in America, that are having that awakening, that they're not anti-Judaism. They're not even anti-Israel existing, but they kind of feel like they've been lied to about Palestinians, that there's been basically what we were taught about the horrors of the Holocaust, that we are doing a lot of those things that were done to us now. Obviously, when you're talking to Latinos and other people, that might not be the top issue. But have you talked to, in your campaigning, people like you that might have had this awakening?
Sure. And more than anything, I have people that are reaching out to me because of this, and because so many people, especially in certain parts of the country and Jewish communities, feel particularly isolated from people. I've even been setting up older people on friendship matchmaking situations, because I've had a couple of an older Jewish gentleman reach out to me a few months ago. He's 84. And he saw me and he was inspired, and he just cannot figure out what has gone. All his friends, he says, have lost their minds. They have lost their minds. And so I've been sort of connecting as many people that are coming up and together as I can, because at the end of the day, there are more of us. And it's really just about building that coalition of people and having people feel that solidarity, because when it feels like you're alone, it's you feel a lot less effective. And so it's defeatist feeling. I think it's important for people to understand that there are a lot of people like us. Unfortunately, the people with the money and the capital are fighting against us, but there are way more of us. And it's hard to see through that sometimes. So I think oftentimes people just need a little inspiration.
Right. And shifting away from the Israel-Gaza situation for a minute, it's remarkable to me. I remember in 2016, I covered Tim Canova before he lost his mind. He was running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And it was pretty remarkable in the 23rd district at the time. I'd say the majority of people didn't even know there was a primary.
Right.
Didn't even know who their congressperson was. You see this also. I met you on the ground in Cleveland. I was covering Nina Turner's primary. Most people there, if they know there's a primary, their only exposure to or getting information is 30-second TV ads. Yeah. And that's what informs them, because most people are not diehard into politics. And if they're going to vote, all they hear is the ads. So that's why all this AIPAC money flooding in is so important, because a lot of times AIPAC's ads might not be specifically about Israel.
No, they're usually not. They're usually not about Israel.
Right. But it's pretty damaging if you are, have less money to compete, because most voters are, I don't want to say low information, but don't have a lot of time, and their only exposure would be this onslaught of TV digital ads, which are going to paint, in Bowman's case, his opponent as, reasonable, moderate, pro-Israel, and paint Bowman as like a supporter from us, which is not the same thing. And I'm sure AIPAC, if need be, will spend money to support Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah, we're in a mixed bag situation, because Debbie's strategy with me going back to 20, and what she's still doing right now, is to pretend that this isn't happening. She doesn't even acknowledge there's a primary. She doesn't even people just wonder, oh, she's showing up at things lately. Huh, that's interesting. I mean, she doesn't even acknowledge.
You mean the candidate who is fighting for democracy along with the Democratic Party doesn't acknowledge she has a primary challenger?
Oh, God, no. No, she doesn't acknowledge there's a primary. And I would love somebody to ask her point blank, but nobody seems to want to do that. But so, yeah, she just pretends it's not happening. So on the one hand, I was concerned early on about how much I thought that the Israel lobby would come after me. But that is now being tempered by her probably holding them back, because she doesn't want any attention brought to this race. Her strategy is to pretend it's not happening. And let me be very clear. We had 14% voter turnout in a primary here, 14%. So when these AIPAC and all these lobby groups are spending all this money on the TV ads and At the end of the day, those ads are on repeat for a small echo chamber number of registered Democratic voters. And what it really comes down to is these candidates' ground game, which is what I said to you before, because all the ads at the end of the day will not compete with a quality ground game, because their interactions will be by mailer and TV or paid people that are not really, that are just there. It's not the same thing as having volunteers and canvassers that really believe in what you're doing. So I don't know their ground game. But if they have a good one and they're really knocking doors and they're really on the ground talking to the voters that they need, and I'm talking in a 14% voter, that's how little you need to actually get out to vote. I need 50,000 votes. That's it. And keep your eye on that, right? So no matter how much money they put in, you have to get your 50,000 voters out. That's the game. So I can't comment what other people do on their ground.
Absolutely. Smash the like button. Almost 200 watching. We need a lot more than that. Definitely check out Jen's campaign at her website, which is
Jen2024.org.
I put you in a Marco Rubio situation there.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, and seriously, and guys, and anyone who does know me knows that I'm like forever Cottonmouth.
Yeah, there you go. But also recently, it's not unusual. Florida, again, underwater, mass flooding.
Yeah.
Hurricane season seems to be starting soon. These are kind of life or death matters.
It's environmental Russian roulette. We've been playing it since I was a kid. It's fun. Stick around every year.
So I'm expecting Debbie Wasserman Schultz to roll out her bold, climate policy that she's going to play for.
Funny. It's funny you say that, because she will put out, and she uses, look, when you're the elected and you're the incumbent, you have that advantage to use that position for free media. That's just the nature of the game. So she will put out her hurricane preparedness mailer. She might have already done it, that goes out to everyone in the district with her picture on it, talking about hurricane preparedness. And that, of course, is paid for by, what? But anyway, her official congressional capacity, right? And because it's official information. But yes, so no, she will definitely tell us to be prepared for hurricane season, but she still invests in fossil fuel and fracking companies, so it's hard to take that too sincerely.
And I also think the people down there, the voters, should know grocery prices are one of the biggest wallet sucks across the country. Florida's inflation rate for a long time was higher than the national rate. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, one of the biggest lobbies she's paid off by is Big Sugar, which is king and queen down in South Florida. Can you describe what you know about Debbie Wasserman Schultz's relationship with the sugar special interest down there? Because it would seem to be at odds with lowering prices at the grocery store.
Oh, it's at odds with everything. It's at odds with our ecological systems. I mean, it's at odds. So her history with Big Sugar long predates me ever running against her. What's interesting is when I ran against her in 20, actually there's a lobbying group down here, an environmental group that's fights Big Sugar, and it's called Bull Sugar. Bull Sugar is the name of the group. And they actually reached out to me back in 20, and because of her history and because they have been monitoring her on this issue for so long. So this wasn't anything I ever had to even point out to anybody. That's what's great about it. She does take money from the sugar industry, and the sugar industry in Florida is one of our biggest agricultural and industrial polluters. That's just the nature of industry. I'm not saying that's different than other places. That's what we have here. And there's a lot of problems with where the sugar industry is located. It's in Central Florida, and it's just right at the southern part of Lake Okeechobee. And essentially what happens is all of the runoff that comes, that's supposed to be flourishing and thriving and making our Everglades grow, is contaminated with all sorts of different chemicals and this kind of stuff you're covering in what you're doing. But just whatever runoff comes from that industry. I can't even remember the names of these chemicals, right? But I do know that it creates this major blue-green algae situation that is suffocating and starving our manatees because it's killing all the other plant life in the water. And so then the manatees are starving. And it's also exacerbating red tide in the Gulf, which is a huge problem. And people don't realize how much this affects tourism. This isn't just a matter of, oh, the poor fish and, oh, the environment. Even if you're just interested in the bottom line, this hurts Florida. Nobody wants to go to Sanibel Island when there's like, 50-pound groupers washed up all over the beach. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody, and creatures that come from so deep that you never want to see them on shore ever. And I've seen some of these things. And I assure you, these are things that are not meant for us to ever see. They should not be here. So if they're on the shore, it's because something's wrong.
Right.
So no, that doesn't help us.
And I'd like to ask you a broader psychological question.
Am I qualified? I don't know if I'm qualified for broad psychological questions, Jordan.
Well, talking about your psychological brain. So I think
we'll see. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I even feel it. I'm kind of, there's kind of a deflated balloon mentality here with the progressive left. We're in a post Bernie world. We're in a, I don't get into fraud squad or whatever, but they certainly didn't do what they said they were going to do. AOC is out there doing seminars with, on anti-Semitism with Zionists. Jabal Bowman, I think he's got a good heart, but he's, they don't leverage their votes whatsoever. I haven't heard Medicare for all or a strategy from any of them in a long time. And they kind of hopped onto this, not now. Let's, keep Biden in.
Right. Every 4 years, that's what they do. That's the same thing every 4 years.
But if these folks stay in there, I mean, let's say Trump loses, Biden wins, and, whatever the case may be, drops out or isn't with us anymore, and it's Kamala versus Tom Cotton in 2028. I mean, I see these people saying the same thing. Tom Cotton, DeSantis, name your flavor of crazy. So,
I was more upset by the Kamala.
But what do you really do if you get in there to Congress? Because, I mean, it doesn't really seem like I don't think they're all one Jen Perelman rah-rah speech away from becoming a little bit more, dare I say, aggressive or rabble-rousing.
No, I'm not even a good speech giver. I mean, I would prompt Nina Turner or Dr. West or someone like that to do that more so than me. But yeah,
basically, right now we have people in Congress that theoretically believe in leftist and progressive values who are not willing to show some spine, leverage votes, play hardball, and as a result, we have this merry-go-round of lesser of two evils, neoliberalism, and a real crisis happening when it comes to climate, housing, in what I cover a lot, environmental genocide.
Yeah.
What could you even do if you get in there?
It's a really good question. And I honestly do not know until I'm there. But what I can just tell you what I've observed and what I see and what I notice. But we're playing like this Monday morning quarterback because we only know parts of what we see. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And so it's really hard for me. I mean, there's definitely things I've been disappointed by that I have felt defeated by. And the fact that we even call it post-Bernie is an indicator of what the real problem is. And I think that the real problem is that there was never a clear-cut mission among people as much as it was just Bernie. And while that would have been great, don't get me wrong, I was all for that. And I think we'd be infinitely better off in so many ways. Once that ended, a lot of the people just sort of evaporated because for them, it was about him or the squad or whoever it is. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you elect. The movement on the outside has got to be connected to the movement on the inside. This isn't just about getting policy passed. They spend more time censuring each other up there than getting policy passed anyway. That's all they do is sit up there and fight amongst each other. The bigger question is, what could you be doing with that platform, with your voice? What could you be doing if you didn't care about being reelected? I don't know. I don't know that I've ever seen that. So it might be a first. But
do you think, I mean, obviously you can't know till you're there. I look at someone like Cori Bush, who I don't think is a sellout or anything like that, but I met when I was covering Black Lives Matter protests in St. Louis. She was on the ground there, hardcore activist, a nurse, single mother. And I would say her voice has kind of gotten a little neutered there. She did the little, protests on the Capitol Hill steps for, to stop evictions. But other than that, I don't want to say she's played the game, but she's certainly not the hardcore activist I have seen on the streets in Congress. Do you think that's just, you won't know if that happens to you until you get there, or?
Well, yeah. And the difference is, and I've said this before, and this is not in any judgment of any of those people, because I know Corey and I know Jamal. I haven't met Alex personally, but Corey is a fighter, and Corey is doing what she feels is best for her district. That's all I can say. And in truth, the desire to be reelected isn't just self-serving. And I do get that, because somebody like Corey, for example, yeah, of course, I'm sure she does like having a secure job and benefits. Who wouldn't? I wouldn't. I'm not rejecting that concept either. Okay. But she also does know that if it's not her there, that's going to be infinitely worse for her people, or at least that could be a very genuine belief. And so to some extent, you have to play the game, or you could lose your seat to someone that could really do some damage to your people. And I think that even very well-intended people do believe, like, I think that's more of the mindset with people like Corey and even Alex, is just maintaining position because they're so worried about losing any position. And that's their strategy. And I'm not going to criticize that strategy. I don't agree with everything that Alex has done. I don't have to. Like, that's not her job. Is not for everyone to agree with her. Certainly not for me to agree with her. But for me, it's not about me being in Congress. So that's not my mission. I have a much broader mission than that. This is one part of what I'm doing. And that's the other thing. Everything I do on my campaign is not simply a means to me being elected. Never has been. Everything that I do on my campaign is part of my mission of building my brand and building a coalition towards what I see as the betterment where I'm trying to go. Now, for me, I want May Day 2028 general strike. That's what I want. So in my mind, what I'm doing is sort of in that vein. And this is just one project.
Right. I'd also like to ask you, before you ran, you focused a lot on criminal justice reform down there. Well, if you haven't noticed, we're 4 years after George Floyd was basically lynched on camera, and the police are acting more brazen. Not to mention Biden gave $32 billion more to police. In this case, in the case of Trump, I will say it could get worse, because he's basically saying go harder to the police and rough up those protesters. But we've been covering it. John Farina has covered nearly 60 of these events. You got cops punching pro-Palestinian protesters in the chest. You got them just randomly pulling people who are walking off to the sidewalk down, beating them. We've seen them bloodying people's faces. These are unarmed people. And it kind of has just been normalized. The media doesn't really report it. If they do report it, it's very sympathetic of the police. If you got in there, what would be some of the criminal justice things you're pushing?
Yeah, I mean, well, what we're talking about is something that is a very hard thing for me to talk about, because I keep falling further and further to the left on this. I actually was at one of the Cop City weekend actions that took place in Atlanta. And so the idea of what's going on with what we call law enforcement, but really isn't. They're not enforcing laws. They're just policing us. There's a very big difference between law enforcement and policing. And right now, all we're seeing is policing. And it's extremely scary. And I don't think people understand that these cop cities are now going to start being everywhere. This is not a one-off. They have been planning for this. In fact, that is what you have been seeing. What you say you haven't seen since George Floyd is what's been going on behind the scenes with these cop cities. Because instead of that being sort of a starting point for us to see some legitimate reform, all that has been is a starting point for the policing industry to be building up its reserves and planning for more and more revolutions. And that's all they're doing. And they're so over militarized, it's horrifying. And so, I don't use the word abolition because it freaks people out. But what we have as policing is not what we need in this civilization. It just isn't. That's just not what we need. So, I don't know that it's a matter of, you can just reform that. I think we're kind of past that at this point. But there are certain things that have to be put into play. We need to end qualified immunity. I think that all of these, none of them should be immune from criminal or civil action. And I think it should come out of their police pensions. I think that when you have it be collectively, then when civil suits and liability start coming out of their pensions instead of the municipal tax dollars, they will start policing themselves more so. And that still isn't the only solution, but there's many different little things that can be put into place. They need to not be able to be having military equipment. That entire operation is off the wall to me. And I was walking, this was in Cop City, personal anecdote. And I don't know, have you been to where Cop City is?
We've covered it. Yeah.
I know.
Been there.
Right,
I haven't.
Tina's been there. You haven't been there. Okay. So I'm walking up this public road with a group of people, and I kid you not, and I am a hippie, and I am surrounded by tree hippies carrying saplings that they want to go plant in the forest and singing "Love is Our Strength." That's the premise of this. Nobody has weapons. Nobody is even rowdy, literally marching, singing this. And we come up to this block on a public road, mind you, of tanks and police in riot gear and tanks. And they had those sound things, which is what really scares me. That is what I am most scared of, are those sound things. Cause I feel like that'll pop my eardrum. Like that kind of freaks me out. So to fight against tree hippies singing "Love is Our Strength," we have gone very awry, very, very awry. And if people don't recognize that is like, this is the same difference as the distinction between Israel and what's going on in Gaza. This is the same sort of level of power disparity that we're talking about. You have tree hippies and you have tanks. Like in what universe does that even seem remotely reasonable to people? So it's, again, the level of violence is dictated by the oppressor, always, always. It is never determined by the oppressed. So whatever level of violence we're seeing is being determined by the oppressor, always. So that's who's responsible for this. And obviously it's coming straight through our policing, which is now like paramilitary. And it's incredibly scary. And I wish I had something comforting to say to people, but I don't. It's incredibly scary. I would suggest everybody always have bail money and always have a lawyer and an advocate on speed dial if you're going to get involved in these things, because this is I unfortunately think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And all I can do is just be loud as I can be.
I would argue also, Chris Hedges has talked about late stage capitalism and the end of empires. We've seen there are many cop cities being proposed in many other places. And I would say that might be the neoliberal ether preparing for the late stage capitalism, and potentially general strikes or more aggressive organizing. Last question. This is more Florida based, but could be nationally based. Seeing a lot of murmurs that Rubio might be Marco Rubio might be on the short list for vice president.
Marco
I mean,
Rubio.
in today's Republican Party, I guess he's kind of like a normie, but by policy, he's just as radical as the next guy. I think Trump might pick him, actually, just because he kind of has that Pence thing in terms of moderate normie politician, but will basically do whatever Trump wants. Well, in this case, I guess Pence didn't do everything Trump wanted. But what should people know about Rubio since he's been a senator of Florida?
He's just useless. He's just useless. And again, our other senator is Rick Scott, who is one of the most vile people ever and should be in prison for he has a death count attached to him because of the Medicare and Medicaid crap that guy pulled. So anyway, so for us, Rubio is like, he's just feckless. But it would make sense for Trump to pick him, because Trump needs to pick somebody that he can belittle and that he thinks of as much less charismatic and much less. He needs somebody that will like lick his boots. And the fact that it's somebody with a Latino name, that makes sense too. I mean, it makes sense demographically for him to pick. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. But Rubio is just, look, Democrats can't stand him. And the Republicans don't really think about him one way or the other, which is what's interesting. But he's still not hated as much as Rick Scott, which is why I knew that there was no chance of taking him out in 22, which was a ridiculous waste of money mission. Yeah, Rubio is not loathed enough. He's just not. Absolutely. He's just not even considered very much.
Before I let you go, tell people the who, what, why, when, and where. When is the primary? What do you need from people? Where can they find and share that ad? And, you know, what's your shot? What's your shot at winning?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was possible. We did decently in 20, and given the amount of effort and work that we've put in on the ground since then, and even just with name recognition, I mean, there's just the different variables that I think work in our favor. But yeah, we need help. We need money. We need volunteers. We need people to sign up for phone banking and text banking. And you guys can do all of that at gen2024.org. Also, you need to follow us on social media. We are at Jen FORFL25. So it's Jen for flu 25. And yeah, and the video, I'm pretty sure it's on all of our, it's pinned, I think, on all of our social media. You can find it. But yeah, we need people to help. We need people on the phones. We need people. And if you live down here, we need people knocking doors. That is what we need to do. That is how you win, even despite whatever money gets thrown at us. And we do need money. So I know that this is one of the sort of ironies of the whole situation, is that the people on the left are generally the people without the means that are struggling. Like, we fight for the least of these, and yet we still need the people that are the most of these to help us so that we can fight for the least of these. This is sort of the problem. Like, the people I fight for, unfortunately, are not the people that can really help me do that. So we do need people to donate. And
it's funny you say that, because I was talking to someone the other day about how Status Coup needs a fuck ton more money to keep the lights on. And he's like, well, why don't you just reach out to, X, Y, and Z progressive with money? And I'm like, I've made my living talking to poor people.
Right.
So I don't have those connections to just call, so-and-so and ask for $100,000. But I digress. Also, I will say, not that I'm advocating, let's have poll watchers here, like, Trump people say. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been known to do some fuckery in elections. So you certainly do need, volunteers or what have to keep their eyes on the ground, not on primary day, but before that, make sure that lawn signs are not being, pulled down. Make sure that there's not mysterious vans somewhere doing weird things. So if you want to volunteer for Jen's campaign, go to her website. The links are in the description. Thank you for joining us. We'll keep in touch.
All right. Thanks, Jordan. Bye, all.
Absolutely. We're going to move on to another topic. Smash that like button. Share this live stream. As you know, my book is coming out now in less than 2 months. We the Poisoned, exposing the Flint water cover-up and the poisoning of 100,000 Americans. Pre-order available now. Link in the description. And I want to talk about the fact that as the Democratic Party is hyperventilating through emails right now, sending you nonstop fundraising emails. Oh, democracy's at stake. Trump, Trump, Trump. Don't get me wrong. Trump is a threat, but they want to save democracy. The governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, who is adored by the national media. They are pom-poms for Gretchen Whitmer, already angling for her to run in 2028. She right now is fighting activists on the ground in Michigan who want to get rid of the emergency manager law. If you know the story of Flint, the water crisis in large part happened because they had unelected czars put in place in Flint, in Detroit, in a lot of other majority black communities that were not elected and just put in by Republican governors, sometimes Democratic governors, to basically hijack government control. And those laws, even though they have been condemned by Democrats, are still on the books in large part in Michigan. And right now, activists in Detroit are trying to get them off the books. But Gretchen Whitmer, for some strange reason, is fighting that. Joining me now is Miko Williams. He's a longtime activist on the ground in Detroit, water warrior. I've met you before. And
yes.
I was watching your video earlier. I mean, you've been exhaustively fighting the crooks in Detroit and elsewhere for years. A lot of people don't realize, they just assume, well, they had to have gotten rid of these emergency manager laws, right? No, they haven't.
No, they did not. No,
so,
absolutely not. Thank you for having me on your show, Jordan. Yes, they have not removed Public Act 436. Public Act 436 is a law where if your city is struggling financially or if it's going through any type of financial trouble, they are to the point an unelected czar, as you say, and this czar could be anyone that could overrule the local government, the local city authority, what are, as taxpayers, who we put in as our elected representatives, will have a big, just like this, they'll be censored. And so this unelected czar would make decisions. He could break unions. He could do what he or she, they could do whatever they want. And we have no control. As you said, Jordan, Governor Whitmer has not repealed Public Act 436. I just tried to get at her at one of these meetings. Governor Whitmer did her wave. She did a wave and she just walked out. You know, she talked to a few people, but no one won't ask her this one question. When are you going to repeal Public Act 436, which is over Black cities, African American communities, and also there are laws within the United States of America that are similar to Public Act 436. It's just called under local fiscal stability.
Right. And by the way, Democrats have complete control in Michigan right now.
Yes, they do.
For the first time in a long time.
That's
the
correct.
governor, both houses of the state assembly. And the fact that they haven't repealed this, are you noticing that Republicans are becoming more extreme in this country? So if and when Republicans retake control in Michigan and this law is still in the books, who's to say they're not going to do this again in Detroit or Flint or, you know, name your cat or Pontiac or Flint got most of the attention because of the water crisis, but these emergency managers did a number on Detroit, and I believe illegally forced you into bankruptcy and stole the few public assets Detroit had. For people that don't know, tell folks what the under emergency management, what they did in Detroit.
So emergency manager Kevin Orr in Detroit shut off the water, sold assets, made a contrived statement about bankruptcy and about its citizens that we're dumb, lazy, stupid, happy and rich. If we were happy and rich, Jordan, we wouldn't be in this situation. That ushered in the election of Mike Duggan. Mike Duggan is the unofficial emergency manager, but he could have been the emergency manager. Emails and talks from before have shown that he was considered to be picked because he's a white man from Livonia, and he's also a Wayne County executive, and he's a hack operative, meaning that anything in Detroit could be trusted under Mike Duggan because he's been around longer and things of that nature. But also emergency managers in the city of Detroit have also used, as I said, contrived lies and false statements to bankrupt this city. We are under a memorandum of understanding that our water, the Great Lakes Regional Water Authority, is an illegal entity and it should be disbanded. The Detroit Land Bank, which takes hundreds and thousands of vacant properties and flip it for thousands of dollars or however much they get, that is unfair to Detroiters who have lost their homes and trying to get them back. And then also emergency management in the city of Detroit, Benton Harbor tries to come after our schools. They came after the Detroit Public Schools, split them in two, and now it's the Detroit Public Schools Community District, where it's still facing a shortfall under its superintendent, Nikolai Vitti, and the board members. Emergency managers are very dangerous, and the concept of it, emergency management, is dangerous for your community. If they implemented this in a white community, Jordan, them people will be screaming, and you'll see it all on the national news. But in Detroit, Benton Harbor, Flint, Muskegon, Kalamazoo, and also another community, Lincoln Park, which went through a review. Highland Park is also was saved from emergency management. So this is how Governor Whitmer saved her political ass. She wrote the check for Highland Park just so they don't go into receivership. She also designated certain contracting companies to be in charge of Highland Park, but to also work it out with the Great Lakes Regional Water Authority and the city of Highland Park. Mayor Glenda McDonald, this is her first term, and she has not even got, collective bargaining yet from her constituents and from her community. So she had to go in there alone, sign on to the deal, and Highland Park was saved.
And something that people need to realize, because this is not just a Michigan thing, they brought in this emergency manager to Detroit, Kevin Orr. He was a lawyer with Jones Day, which is a law firm that is known to represent a who's who of corporate corrupt corporations. He was a bankruptcy lawyer. And what do you know? They bring in a bankruptcy lawyer to run the city, take power over from the elected mayor and city council, and then, I believe, create a scam that used the residents of Flint as guinea pigs to bankrupt Detroit. And how did they do that?
Through the water.
One of Detroit's few remaining assets was the Detroit Water and Sewage Department, which was public. It provided Michigan nearly half of its water. And
120 communities.
Right. There was no major health. I mean, the water wasn't perfect, but it certainly wasn't poisoned. And Flint was Detroit's biggest customer. So how do you take out Detroit by the knees? Get Flint off of Detroit's system, and then they can't continue. And that's what happened when Flint left, even though the numbers didn't make sense. Flint was going to save money if it stayed on Detroit's water system, but state and local officials came up with bullshit math that they'll be saving money if they go to this brand new water system. So it was this big cabal it's not like an unelected person that you just pluck out of city council meetings and, they're good upstanding citizens that take over as emergency managers. These are corporate lawyers that are basically coming in to help you rob the public assets and privatize it. And they have basically privatized the water. You mentioned the Great Lakes Water Authority.
The Great Lakes Regional Water Authority is they claim it's a nonprofit entity, but that's a private entity that leases wholesale water to communities. So basically, it's like someone coming up with a gun in your head and saying, "Give me your money or you won't get this," or blah blah blah. But not only that, Jordan, you're right. The lie that was created from Flint, that was told to Flint, is that, Detroit can't manage you any longer, so you have to either pay. And this is the same thing for Highland Park. So they come up with these elaborate lies that you have to pay all of this money. You can't work out no deferment, just like you do corporate customers such as DTE Energy, the Detroit Tigers, Red Wings, Eastern Market, and such, that owe these big, gigantic balances of water bill debt that could benefit, so that no water won't be shut off in the city of Detroit to a poor single mother with 5 kids. But yet you want to lie. And when I exposed those lies, I was literally arrested. I was literally told I didn't have any proof, but I did show proof. And when I did show proof, they basically denied it. But we know that water is the biggest asset. It's like the blue gold. And that's what they were coming for. They were coming for the water. Now they're coming for the parking and the international revenues. The border crossing, the Windsor Tunnel, is one of our biggest assets, sold to a private company in the bankruptcy, managed by a private company in the bankruptcy. We still don't know who those people are. Our riverfront was leased off in the bankruptcy. I mean, they took away our crown jewel like Belle Isle. It's privatized by State Parks, by Rick Snyder. And wouldn't you know it, Jordan, when the Michigan train station opened after 40 years of neglect, they brought Governor Rick Snyder out to the party of the century and revered him as if he was he saved Detroit in the train station. He did not save Detroit in the train station. He bankrupted us. He was racist by intellectual racism, and he also used our assets and poisoned a whole bunch of children to where they'll never see normalcy ever again. So no, we have got to let people know that you have got to resist whenever your government is talking all of these things and lying to you. You have got to press harder for the truth. But I'm also going to tell people, don't encourage emergency management. You think it may work out for your community, but it is a dangerous slope to slide on. And when you don't like something that's going to happen that could impact you and your family or impact your community, then you're going to be just like us, stuck in the same boat, can't get no answers, can't get no accountability. And, if Governor Whitmer does see this episode, she should repeal Public Act 436 because she's a Democrat.
I'm curious because I know people in Flint were super excited when she got elected, because you got to think that a Democrat would do better than Rick Snyder, who poisoned them and covered it up. And I know Detroit people thought, she would do better. Well, right now, I mean, Democrats always are banking for them to win Michigan. They have to bring out black voters in Detroit, in Flint, elsewhere. And polls are showing decreasing black support for Biden, more black support for Trump. Obviously, you don't speak for all black people, but I would have to think that what we're talking about, part of this deflated enthusiasm for Democrats is, don't tell me about democracy at stake when you haven't even repealed the most undemocratic thing in recent history in Michigan.
Well, listen, a lot of people here in the city of Detroit are disenfranchised, are very upset, and anybody could get it. You know what I'm saying? Some black people would give Trump another chance. They still believe Kwame was innocent. He didn't do anything wrong. And Joe Biden is just giving lip service. And city of Detroit, we are so real. We will literally tell you the God honest truth. So if you're a performer, politician, or even so much as a circus act, don't come here to the city of Detroit thinking you can win everybody over, because you have a lot of skeptical voters out here, especially those that are claiming that Joe Biden has not done enough for the black community of the United States of America, but Donald Trump definitely ain't gonna do nothing for black people in the United States of America. So, black people are very much on the fence, and we're on a line that if you want our votes, if you want our attention, and if you want our enthusiasm, you're gonna have to come down here. We're gonna have that hard conversation of talk with you. And you're gonna have to perform miracles, blessings. You're gonna have to walk on water just for black people here to vote for you, any one of them.
And also from Detroit to Flint to Cleveland to Milwaukee to Philly, you name it. I mean, at the end of the day, they are making 10 to 15 blocks beautiful, gentrification, and leaving the rest of the city to fucking rot. And then they want to sell that to you as progress. Well,
it's not progress.
I've been to Detroit many times. Certain parts look great, and I would love to get a beer or a meal at. But if I drive 3 minutes down the road, it looks like third world countries in some places. And that doesn't seem to be, it's not improving under Republicans, but it's also not improving under the current governor. Can you talk about things that people need to know? The water issues, housing, crime, which happens when people are starving, inflation. Talk to me about what's going on the ground there that people need to know about.
Well, first of all, inflation, we can't find any jobs here. Cost of living has went up, can't find a house, don't have any type of schools that we can send our children to. It's so many issues here, Jordan. We might have to have another hour, but it's the one issue that is of our, where are we going as African Americans? Who are we going? Who do we place our trust in? Because we can't get this through local and state. How is the federal going to help our lives? Do we even care about the federal? Because after a while, down here in the city of Detroit, you got black people that are literally being thrown out of their houses, can't find housing, and have to force to move. And then you see these HGTV cookie cutter looking buildings that are going up to our tax abatements and subsidies being used to fund these things, and we're being locked out. We can't even attend the grand opening or the ribbon cutting ceremony. And, you know, I see Gretchen Whitmer, the governor, Mayor Mike Duggan, and others all behind the ribbon cutting and saying this is going to be a future for all. It's not a future for all. I mean, because I can't afford any of these new high-rise buildings that they're building. And then you know, everyone has saw the train station all across America, but half of those artists weren't from Detroit. And we have a whole legacy of artists here from Motown. Motown runs the world. And I could not believe that all of the artists, including Stevie Wonder, turned down Detroit. So we're just trying to fight to survive. We're just trying to fight to live. And, you know, the more and more that these politicians that don't listen to us, that don't value us, or don't until it's election time, you know, they're going to feel the funk come November when they get the bad news that they have been replaced.
And the bottom line is, she's been in office for 6 years.
She's term limited. She's term limited. So we're trying to figure out who's going to be the next governor right now. And they say it's Mayor Mike Duggan of Detroit. Oh, but I'm not sure how this is going to work because Mike Duggan, we live in a racist, segregated state, Jordan. So the West Michigan and all of those fellows over there, they're not going to confer with Mike Duggan because he's a white Democrat from Livonia, Detroit. We don't know what the political headwinds are going to do. We know Gretchen Whitmer is going to run for a national position. She might be with Biden, or she might campaign for president in 2028. This is what I'm hearing. But I mean, where we at right now, like, you know, we're stagnated. We don't have Black leadership. One of the candidates for Chariton lost his signature battle. He lost his signature votes, and he doesn't have any signatures. And then Rashida Tlaib's not doing anything. She'll do for her people, but she won't do for our people, and that's a problem. So, and Alyssa Slotkin is a both sides CIA agent, I believe. But she always wants to both sides everything, and I'm sick and tired of her. So we have literally no choices, no prominent decisions of what we're going to do collectively. So Black leadership in Detroit is in the toilet, Jordan. It is sinking down.
You feel Rashida Tlaib isn't fighting the good fight for you?
No. Even if she could say impeach the MFer, she could be on all levels, but she's not fighting for us, Jordan. She's fighting for Palestine and her people. She's doing for attending protests, but she wouldn't defend a Black woman being punched in the face by violent protesters at the 13th District Christmas party last year. Rashida has not done anything for the city of Detroit, yet she claims you see her on TV, you see her everywhere, but you don't see her right here with us. It's a problem.
And my last question,
yes,
I mean,
sir.
what do you think when you see it? Emails, the media, everyone's hyperventilating about democracy. I mean, we're going on like several decades. The Democratic governor's been in office for 6 years. Democrats have controlled the state, I believe, for 2 years now.
Yeah.
This could have been the first thing they repealed. It would have made great politics. It also would have been the right thing to do. I have to think they're not doing it so they could reserve the right to use it again, the emergency managers.
No, the problem is that they are tone deaf. Our Democrats don't hear us, see us, or feel us. So what happens is that they think that it's too hard. They can't get through a majority. Well, they got the majority. We have a first Black speaker, Joe Tate. He can repeal Public Act 430. He can bring it to the floor. And we also have a first minority leader, a floor leader, Abraham Ayash. And he knows about Public Act 436. He can bring it to the floor. And also we have Democrats who don't want to be in a dictatorship. Yet emergency management is dictatorship. And so, you know, if you want to repeal, if you're so concerned about democracy, repeal Public Act 436 and get rid of those laws like that in similar communities. Because first of all, if Trump does get involved, he is going to have a dictatorship. I'm sorry, if Trump gets elected, there will be a dictatorship. There will be law and order, and only do as he say do. And this is taking over Europe and other countries and communities of the world where political parties are fighting each other in the streets, having civil war and things of that nature. No, we are a country that is good. We are a country that is free, and we value our freedoms, liberties, and justice. But I don't know anymore, Jordan, because my democracy can be snatched away at any moment. They could pull out a law from 1800 something and could make us slaves again. If they did it for abortion, they could do the same thing. They could take away our rights as free peoples, and it would be chattel slavery under all of us. But you know who all be a slave to, Jordan? China. China will come in and they will own all of our asses, lock, stock, and barrel, and there's nothing anyone could do about it, Trump or any world power. So we have got to maintain our standing. Now, I'm sorry to say this, but we have to keep the call of the chair the call of the chair. The call of the chair is democracy and freedom. The call of the chair is liberty. The call of the chair is making sure that everybody else in the world is straight, so that they rely on us. So we may need to keep, and we'll make Biden we'll force Biden to bow down and to listen to us and to do what we say do. I can't blame him 100% when I can blame his aides, I can blame his campaign staff, I can blame all of the people that he has around him, that this vision of yours, Mr. President, may not be the vision of everyone else that is suffering difficulty right now, experiencing life as we know it. Yeah.
And a viewer said they could absolutely do the same thing for LGBTQIA.
Absolutely,
well.
yes. And the LGBTQIA needs to stand up, and they need to do whatever they can to do to save our democracy. Because 9 times out of 10, when it comes down to marginalized groups like Black people, women, we're going to end up saving this election.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. I'll be in Flint, Detroit area when my book comes out in August. So hopefully I'll see you. And
yes, I am going to pre-order. I'm going to pre-order your book, and I can't wait to see you, Jordan. You are the best journalist that gives a damn, has the facts, do your research, and you also cover with compassion. I'm very happy to say you are my friend.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you. You too.
It's nice to get a compliment once in a while, because this is tough work. I'll tell you. Just in the last week, I've broke 2 major stories that in a normal, sane society, other news outlets would put on the front pages. I broke that the mayor of Flint secretly I recorded him. He accused the powerful foundation of pulling the strings that caused the Flint water crisis. Not one outlet would cover it. I broke that the EPA had detected toxic vinyl chloride, which they claim they have not found in East Palestine, Ohio. Norfolk Southern, the multi-billion-dollar railroad company, blew up 116,000 gallons of this highly toxic, cancerous chemicals. Well, EPA did find it and didn't tell anyone. You'd think other outlets, which I know, by the way, the Associated Press, among others, has confirmed my reporting is correct, yet they still haven't reported it themselves. I wonder why. I guess it's just not news anymore when whole communities are poisoned, and then the government agency that's supposed to protect them hides it. And by the way, I just published earlier this morning a follow-up on our Substack, which you can sign up for free, statuscoup.substack.com, that 3 days after I broke that story on the EPA hiding that they detected vinyl chloride, the agency just kind of quietly on a Friday afternoon posted on its website that they detected three small areas of vinyl chloride. I've emailed them asking, can you tell us when you detected the vinyl chloride? I'm going to guess it was a while ago, and they just hid it from the public. What's considered small areas? How deep in the soil was this? Because depending how deep it is, it could affect groundwater. and why this should all matter to you, whether you live in Flint, East Palestine, wherever. If they're going to hide it from the people of East Palestine and they're going to cover up the poisoning of Flint, what the hell makes you think you're safe? You got a railroad near you, viewers? You got a BP plant? You got a plastics factory? You got mining going on? Fracking going on? Name your environmental or corporate polluter. What makes you think, given what we've seen in Flint, East Palestine, I'm going to have big news on Kalamazoo, Michigan tomorrow, which we've covered, and both Colin and I have gotten sick on the ground covering the poisoning of Kalamazoo, another poor Black community that a multi-billion-dollar paper mill is releasing toxic gas into their community. What makes you think you're safe? Maybe it won't happen tomorrow where you are, but if there's an explosion or an accident, air quotes, because most of these accidents are being done by corporations and the government working together. What makes you think the EPA is going to tell you what's in your air, soil, or water? The truth. What makes you think your government's going to actually help you? What makes you think you're not going to get sick and get cancer? I'm not being dramatic. This is happening in America, folks. Please, please. I have the good news that as of now, I was told we've had over 500 pre-orders of my book. Listen, I'm not going to become a New York Times bestseller from this book because the New York Times is not going to probably review the book. And a lot of these authors, especially journalists that become New York Times bestsellers, their outlets buy up like thousands of copies of the books. Status Coup, we don't have the money to buy up thousands of copies of my books to artificially inflate it on the New York Times bestseller list. However, I do appreciate we've had over 500 of you pre-order the book. If you can pre-order it, the more people that pre-order the book, the higher it rises on the ranks on Barnes & Noble's website, Amazon, and others. The higher it rises up on the ranks, the more people see it. So if you can pre-order, the link is in the description of the video. The book will be out August 6th. I'm finalizing plans now for book events in Flint, New York, DC, and elsewhere. So hopefully if you're around near any of those, you could come check us out. I'm biased, but I think this is a super important book. I think it's going to blow your fucking mind. If you think you know how corrupt this country, if you think you know the Flint water crisis and who poisoned Flint and why, you don't. You don't. I've learned new things as recently as 2 months ago. So again, pre-order the book. Erin Brockovich was nice enough to write the foreword for me. Michael Moore provided a positive blurb that's on the back. So did Mark Lamont Hill, Ryan Grimm, the former mayor of Flint, a couple other people. So really, really excited about that. A lot of super chats today. Double K, $49.99. Holy cow. Thank you so much, Double K. Appreciate that. Kimmy, 99-cent super sticker. Appreciate that, Kimmy. Double K, double whammy. Another $49.99. Love a person who takes on the establishment. Referring to Jen Perelman. She certainly is. And she is not, based on my corruption meter, she's not corrupt. Which is a positive. Definitely check her out. Check out her campaign, her website. Gnarl House, $2, super sticker. Tony DeMaio, $1.99. Jen has my 100% support, as does Status Coup. Tony also gifted a Status Coup membership. Thank you for doing that. That randomly allows someone who's not a member watching to become a member. Double K, member for 30 months, says Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a snake. I asked my daughter, what sound does a snake make? She says, it's very cute. Double K, holy cow. This is monumental. Double K has gifted 20 new Status Coup memberships. That is huge. So, Colin, how does this work? 20 people will get an alert that they've been gifted a Status Coup membership?
Yeah, you saw it most likely in the chat there when the giftings first happened. So just check. If you type in chat, I'm not quite sure what it looks like, but if you type in chat and you have a green on your name, that means you were gifted a member. And
membership, by the way, comes. You get to join us on our monthly members call. You get behind the scenes videos when we're on the ground, among other things. And you get to actually support the one living, breathing, independent outlet that actually does investigative reporting and goes on the ground. We've covered nearly 60, let that sink in, nearly 60 ceasefire protests. Thanks to John Farina, Tina Desiree Berger's covered them too. It's very pricey to continue covering this. We've gone way past our data plan and has spent thousands of dollars in charges over our data plan. We've gone over our data plan, going live 3 to 4 hours a time. So please support us. Thank you so much, Double K. Very, very generous. We really, really appreciate your support with the super chats and the memberships. Steven, $5. Snakes from DCCC hell. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was for Hillary over Obama. DCCC, evil level 4 versus DCCC, evil level 5. Oh, that sounds like it would be a fun video game. Thank you. Another, holy shit, Double K. I got to send you an early Christmas present. Double K, $49.99 again. Yeah, Jen. Thank you. Moral Compass, $5. I'm from Michigan. It seems like few people where I am can see Whitmer's true colors. Most Democrats seem happy as long as the Democrat's in office. Well, you know, she has that Midwestern twang and is, you know, a woman, and she goes up and invites women to come to Michigan to have their abortions and invites trans people, transgender people to Michigan. So she's checking every identity box, and I'm all for that. You know, Michigan being a safe harbor for abortions and opening their arms to the transgender community. But we actually need you to like fight for real democracy, repeal the emergency manager law, actually bring justice to Flint. And how about some clean water after 10 years? It's not enough to just be an identity stand. You need to actually do things for working people and poison people. Moral Compass, again, $5. Michiganders need a better choice. Our choices are between bad and worse. Both parties answer to money, not the people. Most people don't see it. Sad but true. Thank you very much for watching. Again, please support us if you can. StatusCoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. That equals 16 cents a day. $5 a month equals 16 cents a day. Check out my video this morning that I did on the EPA cover-up in East Palestine. I'll have a story tomorrow on Kalamazoo, Michigan. Big news on that front. And Governor Whitmer again allowing a massive corporation to poison a community. So I'll have an exclusive report on that. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.